I'm going to turn these 4 pieces of paper into a metal print, and I'm going to show you how today. So this customer ordered 4 pictures for their Volkswagen. We have 4 pieces of paper here printed out, ready to go, and we're going to turn them into metal prints, as you can see, just like the ones here behind me. So I'm just going to show you the 4 photos. This one, and then this one right here. And they're all pretty dark photos, so they're a little bit trickier to print with, but I'm gonna kind of take you through the process of doing that and we'll make them together. For those of you wondering how I actually print these dark photos, like something really dark like this that also has some light colors in it, one thing I do is when I'm in Photoshop is I print with the regular Epson rigid profile. So that helps. And then I turn on the black point compensation when you're about to print as well. Seems to make quite a bit of a difference in the end. If you're using like a Chromolux ICC color profile, you might have some issues with that. It may not print as well, I've noticed. It really depends on the photo, so you have to go back and forth and test it, but try different settings and see what works best. One of my community members recommended using the Epson one because I always use the Chromolux, and it did make quite a bit of difference. It really helped with something like this, which was a little bit trickier just because they're dark photos. When I'm talking about black, as you can see down on the grill here, let me see if I can kind of hold this in and show you at the same time. In here is really dark. There's a lot of black in there. And what happens is you lose a lot of detail when you're printing if you don't have the right settings. So when you heat press, you don't see what would be in here. So there's obviously little body lines and vents and stuff in here. And if it's too dark, you wouldn't see that when it shows up on the finished product after the heat press. You really wouldn't even see it here on the piece of paper. But with the right settings, you can get it so it prints properly and shows all the finest details in the black. Now, I'm not the best in the world at this, so I do lose a little bit of detail here in the black, but it really is just photo dependent. So sometimes you just aren't going to see the micro details in something that dark. If you're trying to save paper, though you're not going to save much money on this, you can buy 17-inch rolls instead of 24-inch rolls like these are and print one photo. You'll save a little bit of paper right here. So inside the printer you have this roll paper that's 24 inches, but you can get one that's 17 and it'll come to, right here, and it'll print just on 17 inches and save you a little bit. Try and grab us a couple more panels here. Since we have to do 4 of these, I like to do each step at the same time. So we have 4 of them. We're going to lay the aluminum over the tops of them and then put them all in the heat press at the same time. This is a high gloss white aluminum panel. I will try to leave some linked below that you guys can get. 12 by 18 inches, and they work great. You can get pretty much any size you want. They are a little more expensive than maybe some of the cheaper brands, but they are the best quality possible. If you're just getting into this, one thing for you to understand is that the finish on the metal is going to be the finish for your finished product. And so what happens is you have this piece of paper here. It's kind of a dull matte looking photo. That's the finish, is matte. This is high gloss, and so when you're finished printing, it will be high gloss. Now you can get a matte one, you can get silver, you can get mid gloss, which is like kind of a in between of matte and gloss. It's just not as shiny. All of my orders that I take in are for high gloss. That's the only type that I purchase, so it's the only thing on my website. That's the most common for pretty much all businesses. Now the bigger ones offer, different finishes because they can afford to have a ton of different inventory and whatnot. I just like to stick with this because it is probably the most common. You want to make sure when you're pulling that off that you don't touch any of this as you're doing it. That's why I kind of hold my hand on it as I pull it, and then I hold the side of it as I pull the rest off, just so you don't get any fingerprints on here. Any of the oil from your hands, it will leave marks on top. When you're putting a panel on top of the paper, one thing you want to make sure to do is make sure there's no dust or anything on the panel or on the paper. So it really helps to blow this paper off, or if you have an air compressor, I see a lot of companies do that, they can just blow them off with a hose gun. And then I like to kind of hold this up at eye level, and you can see if there's any dust particles on there at all. You can blow it off. Obviously stuff just gets on there because it just does. But once it's clear, then you can take it and lay it over the top and line it all up. What happens when there's dust particles on it is that the ink can't transfer through that. And so you'll get little white spots where the dust was, or a little piece of something. Another thing is when you're pulling the plastic off the top of this, it'll leave some residue right in the corner where you tried to pull it back. Make sure to wipe that off. It's always right there in the corner on pretty much every single one. If you forget, you'll have this white spot in the end when you go to pull it off and you have to redo it. So just make sure everything's good, make sure there's no defects in the panels, big scratches or bumps or anything. One thing I have noticed is a lot of panels, no matter where you buy them, right here on the edge will have like a slight bump from when they cut it. You can't really avoid it. I wish you could, and if you cut your own, you could avoid it probably, but if you buy them pre-cut, you kind of just have to deal with it. I don't love that I have to send customers something like that, but it's just this slightly noticeable little bump on the side. I don't even know if the customers see it, but I see it when I put it on. To be clear though, it's not all packages either. Like sometimes you'll get a package and none of them will have any bumps on the side or anything, and they'll be flawless. It's just hit or miss, and you buy from the same company and you get a different result. Not sure if I've showed this, but I've got new logos that I heat press on the back, just says print shed. I put it down here in the corner, about 1 centimeter up and to the side, and this just allows it to give its own branding. I put big mounts here in the middle so I can't heat press anything in the middle to show it anymore like I used to, so that's why I do it down in the corner. And this process is the same for heat pressing, so I just put it on, and when it goes in the press, it shows up just like the front does. This is just what it looks like taped on right here. This is all heat tape all the way around to hold the panel to the paper in the heat press. If you already have a heat press and you use butcher paper like I do to put on the bottom, one thing I recommend is save it and just set it aside so you can reuse it later. So a piece like this, I did a 20 by 30 inch print, a big one, and it leaves ink along the edge, but this works fine because I can fit two 12 by 18s in the middle of it, and they fit and the ink won't bleed onto them because they're smaller than the border. This just works good instead of having to, cut a new piece of paper and put it on. Honestly, it doesn't really cost much of anything, but I just run out of it so often because you burn through so much paper. It helps to just save it so that you can pull it out and reuse it. It's not really about the money, it's more just the convenience. So as always, these get placed with the paper picture on top and the backside facing down. And then I heat this up to 350 degrees Fahrenheit and I cook them for 5 minutes. If you have a smaller heat press, you can probably do 2 minutes, so 120 seconds at probably 395 degrees Fahrenheit. And then I just take this Teflon sheet. Normally it's connected to the top, and I can lay it right over it, and it's good to go. I know these are basic questions that I answer in every video, but I get asked them every day, so I just want to keep kind of letting you guys know. So we're just going to lock this in and let it run. If you're wondering, this is a Kilo 24-inch by 32-inch manual heat press. They make a pneumatic one as well, so the top here goes up and down, air compressed. You just press a button and it locks in. This one works great. I don't have any issues, and so I kind of wanted less complexity, so I chose the manual one. It was about $2,500-ish. I bought it off eBay. If you want links to like everything for all these materials, I have that linked in my community, but I'll also try to find a place for you to buy one of these as well, and I'll link it below. You don't need a heat press this big though. You can definitely go with one that's a lot smaller. Got these back mounts, got to modify them a little bit. I'll show you what I do with them. Pop this open real quick. These are finished. Slide this out, and then I'll just put the gloves on, pull both of them out, let them cool down, and I'll show you the back mounts and what I do to them. So these are Chromolux back mounts, and they are 9 by 12 inches, I believe. They have a little slot on both ends, so you can go either direction. And one thing I do with these is they come with 3M tape on the back. Now the problem is this tape is really thin, and so you can use it, and when you put it on, I'm trying to pull this off here. You can use it, and when you stick it on over a couple of months, the aluminum that it's attached to oftentimes will start to bend a little bit. It'll flex, and it'll actually come apart. Now these are larger, so it may not. I mean, these are big enough strips of tape on both sides, but I've used smaller ones in the past with this same tape, and it comes apart. And so one thing I really like to do is I peel that off, and then I take foam tape, which is what I use on all of my frames, and you just measure it out, and I lay it over the top actually. So I put the tape to tape basically, and I line it up perfect, and then you can just cut it, and it works great. And what this really helps with basically is the foam creates a cushion between the mount and the aluminum so that it allows it to flex a little bit and not actually come apart. And obviously 3M tape is, super strong, so it works really well. I don't know why they use this thin stuff because I know they have the same issue. I know that someone has to know about it, I would assume. They do this for a living. I think it's just because it's cheap, which is why they do it, but if you're using this, I highly recommend swapping it out for some type of foam tape. So this is just what it looks like. You could put a piece of tape in here as well. It doesn't stick to the MDF as well as it sticks from tape to tape, just holds better, so that's why I put it there. Also, if you kept the thin ones and then you wanted to put foam tape in the middle, the thin part wouldn't reach, it wouldn't actually connect because the foam tape is thicker, so just keep that in mind. I need to get some new jigs made, but one thing that really helps is having this cutting mat here with all the grid lines so that you can line up the panel perfectly on the line so you can make sure that it's straight and measure everything. Get it perfect, and then you can take the mount here, this is what I do, and I just line it up so it's 3 inches on the sides and then it's 1.5 inches up. And basically what I do is I line it up there, and then let's see here, get this ruler, and I lay it on the 1.5 inch line, set it right on the lines. Like it squares it perfect and nice and easy. I know it's just, you can't really see it that well, but that's how I do it. So just line it up on the grid and then take the ruler and line it up. And that keeps you from having to like take your measuring and measure it all 4 sides, make sure it's level. Everything just goes perfect. Then what I do, just so I can line this up because there's no real way of aligning it once it's there, is I take my X-Acto knife and I just run it along the inside edge. Because there's a lip, you can draw kind of a line on the metal with your knife, and then you can line up the panel when you go to stick it on. So I'm just cutting a line here. And so the nice part too is you can't really see it once the mount is on because I'm cutting it and I'm doing it at an angle and it gets under it. So you can line it up and then not see it. I've lined all these up here, just took photos for Instagram and everything, but I will show you them all now. This is the finished back sides. Let me just see if I can, try not to touch the front of it. So that is the back sides, the logo down on the bottom, and then it's about 1/2 inch thick. And then this is the front side. Let's see if I can, without touching it again. So that's what that one looks like. We got this side shot here. And then I did 2 of these for Instagram Reels as well, and TikToks. So that one, and then this one. And they have a little bit of a yellow vintage tint to them, and the customer liked them. I sent them a picture, just wanted to clarify that they look good and they were ready sent out. So I'm gonna pack these up and get them out of here. If you wanna learn how to make these, there'll be a community link below. If you wanna buy one, there'll also be my website.